So today guys, we're going to be showcasing one of the best builds to use to beat legendary difficulty in the Division 2. And this is year 7 of the Division 2. So if you're looking for a build that is going to help you get through legendary difficulty and make it feel like it's all normal, well, this is the build for you. Now, when I went to go make this video, I randomly joined a group, and guess what happened? 2 other players were actually running a version of this build, one running the same exact build as me, and then we also had one heartbreaker. Let's get into this build so I can explain why this build is good and why so many players will use this. So for you new or returning players, this could be a build for you guys to start working towards getting. So the gear set I'm talking about is the Refactor set. Why is it good and why do players like running this? Well, first off, this gives you 15% status effects for 2-piece, which we're not using on this build, but the 3-piece gives us 25% skill damage. Now the 4-piece is why this build shines in harder difficulties like legendary. You receive repairs of 10% of the damage dealt by your skills, but your allies receive repairs of 20% of the damage dealt by your skills. So not only are you putting out an insane amount of damage with your skills, they're also being healed because of that damage you're dealing to enemies, so your teammates stay up, and that means you guys can fly through these missions pretty quick. So our first piece of Refactor is going to be the mask. We have skill tier, skill damage, and skill haste, and that's what you're going to be looking for on this piece right here. Our second piece of Refactor is going to be the chest piece. We're going to have skill tier, skill damage, and skill duration. Now the reason why we went with the chest piece is because it has a talent called increase the repairs received return to sender from 10% to 25% and from 20% to 35%. Which this means is now I'm going to receive 25% healing based on the skill damage, and my teammates are going to receive 35%, which is a huge chunk of health that you get back. And that's why on these harder difficulties, when you are taking damage, you're able to survive. For our third piece of Refactor, we have the gloves, we have armor on here, and skill damage. We're able to add an armor roll because we're already going to have 6 skill tier on this build. For our fourth and final piece of Refactor, it's going to be the knee pads with skill tier and skill damage. Now we do have an exotic piece, and this is going to be the holster. It's called the Waveform holster, probably one of the best skill damage exotic gear pieces in the game. Now we have skill tier, skill damage, skill haste, but the reason why this is so good is because the way the talent works, you generate a stack of 3% skill damage on one of your skills every second. Now this caps at 10 stacks. After 10 seconds, at the cap, the stacks transfer to your other skill, and this just goes back and forth. So that means at any given time, you may have 15% on one skill, 15% on another, but you could have up to 30% on one and then 0 on another. It just goes back and forth, but that's an insane amount of damage that you'll get on this build, and that's why you see we have 3 Refactor builds and we're flying through this content, and we just have 1 DPS build who is more of a tank. Now the backpack that we're using is going to be the Force Multiplier. It's the Hand in You backpack, which gives us 10% skill haste. We have skill haste, skill damage, and skill duration mod. Now this bag comes with a talent called Perfect Combined Arms. Shooting an enemy increases skill damage by 30% for 3 seconds. So since we are going to be using the capacitor, which I'll show you guys in a second, we constantly are going to be putting out damage anyway. So that means we should have Perfect Combined Arms up at all times. As you guys could see under my ammo, you should be able to see Combined Arms up all the time. And since we have Perfect Combined Arms, we're getting that additional 30% damage. Now when you're stacking with the Waveform holster, Perfect Combined Arms, and then now I'm going to be showing you guys the capacitor, the amount of extra damage you're getting on this build is why we're able to run through legendary so quick. And that's why even having 3 Refactor builds, we were able to complete this mission in under 27 minutes, and I'll show you that time near the end. So I mentioned the capacitor. Well, the capacitor is really good because it already has a really good base damage, but it comes with assault rifle, damage to armor, and then you can roll the bottom attribute to damage targets out of cover. Those are the 3 rolls you want. Talent is why this weapon is really good. Shooting enemy builds a stack to a cap of 40. Each stack grants 1.5% skill damage. So that's 60% extra skill damage you can have on this build. Now, for every yellow core, we're going to gain 7.5% weapon damage. Now, we're going to have 6 yellows, so that means we're going to have 45% extra weapon damage on top of the 60% skill damage just because we're using this weapon called the capacitor, which is one of the best skill damage exotics in the game. Now the mods are really good on here too because you get 10% crit chance, 11 rounds, 30% crit damage, and weapon handling. You can see I had 0 proficiency on this weapon during the filming of this video, and it was still putting out crazy damage. Now for the skills, I am using the assault turret, and you can see we have tier 6 For the mods, we have duration, skill haste, and then I would also put a damage mod on here, but I'm just missing it for this character. And then for the striker drone, the same thing. We have tier 6, right? We have duration, health, and damage. So those are going to be the 2 skills you want to use and the mods you want to use for this build. If you don't have the capacitor exotic, you can use another weapon called the test subject. If you don't have the test subject, you can just put on a regular weapon and then put a talent called in sync, and that could give you something to work with. But obviously you want to try to get the capacitor, and the build is right here. This is exactly the build you want to run. You want to run that 4-piece refactor, you want to run that perfect combined arms, and you want to run that waveform holster with 2 skills that do damage. So the striker drone and the assault turret are your perfect combo right there. And you'll see, you'll be keeping people up, you'll be putting out a lot of damage, and the amount of healing you'll do, I did 1 billion healing. Yes, I'm talking about 1 billion healing, and that was the most healing on the team. And then I did the most damage to named enemies. And look at my damage output. The guy that beat me also had the same build on, and that's impressive. 2 refractor builds at the top of the list. And remember, my capacitor had 0 expertise, so if I add some more expertise, that means my damage numbers should go up. But again, this is what I'm talking about. This build just works so good, and you're seeing we pretty much ran through this very simple. We had no close calls. I did say at the very beginning of this mission, full disclaimer, I did go down twice, but I was just rushing. I had totally forgot I needed to play this build a little bit more passive. So yeah, this build, get in cover, put your skills down, shoot from cover, and you should be perfectly fine here. But you see how fast we get our healing back because of the amount of damage that our skills are doing. 3 refractors were on here. Again, I really recommend maybe running 2 refractors and then maybe 2 DPS. You might get through the missions a little bit quicker, but having refractors on your build like this, you guys are going to thank me later. If you guys are looking for the capacitor, you guys can get your first capacitor if you're new by playing Summit and then completing 5 challenges. You can also farm any targeted loot areas, but realistically where I would go to is either Countdown, Summit, or any retaliations. You guys can do that. You can set target loot to ARs and then just hope it drops. It can also drop from any exotic cache. And that goes the same for the exotic holster, the waveform holster. If you guys want that, farm holsters, select targeted loot in any of those modes. But yeah, that's it right there, guys. That is the build. If you guys have any questions, let me know. You guys can find most of my builds in the current build playlist. So if you guys want to check those out, you guys can see Refractor, use it. Thank me later. Your teammates will love you. Hey guys, we're gonna wrap this one up. Appreciate the support, appreciate the love. See you guys in the next one. Hey, until then, nothing but skills out.